Welcome to Happy Times and Places, in which you're locked in a hotel room with your greatest fear, and that's me, Toby Hadoke, watching an episode of Doctor Who chosen by a friend of mine and trying to identify their 5 favourite things about it.
Right. Is that okay? Yes. Hello, my name is Steffan Alun. I am a stand-up comedian. That's what I've been doing full-time for the last 6 years, pretty much. Though in lockdown, I also started a Torchwood podcast with my brilliant friend Kim. We watch an episode of Torchwood and talk about it. And the other thing I'm known for Doctor Who fans is that I was in The Day of the Doctor, the 50th anniversary episode. I was just an extra, but I was a very cool extra. I was one of Queen Elizabeth I's henchmen, guards, so I got to threaten and meet 3 different Doctors Who in that. My relationship with Doctor Who is that I've always been a fan of it. My mother loved it and introduced me to it. I think probably the first episode I properly saw was the 1996 TV movie. But given that there wasn't a series on when I was growing up, I just sort of dipped into everything. So to me, Doctor Who has never just been a TV series. It's also been the comics, the novels, the audio dramas, I suppose, when they started, the webcasts. That was a big thing in the early 2000s when I was really getting into it. And then I absolutely fell in love with Russell T Davies's relaunch of it as well. Russell T Davies and I grew up on the same street in Swansea. And so for me, as a bisexual Welsh Doctor Who fan, there could not have been a more perfect relaunch of a show that I already loved so much. So I haven't chosen a Russell T Davies era episode for Toby to watch. I have chosen a Matt Smith episode. Matt Smith, for me, I think, had a bit of a tough job, just speaking personally. I'd loved the Russell T Davies version so much. That was so perfect for me. It was a bit apprehensive going into a new era with a very different authorial voice and a very different style. So, you know, I didn't always connect with certain creative decisions that production made. It wasn't quite to my taste in some ways. But I've chosen the Matt Smith episode that I watched and thought, oh, this is so good. And it's not just good because it's kind of reminiscent of the past. It's good in its own right. It's a very pure Matt Smith era episode, and I love it. And that episode is The God Complex. So I won't say anything more about the God Complex other than how much I like it and how much I'm excited to hear Toby watch and enjoy that story.
Oh, well, I think that's one of the best intros we've ever had from Steffan, a comic I've worked with, I think only once, maybe, but of course we got on, and we did the secret little handshake. I think he just said, I like Doctor Who too. But I thought that was a lovely intro. Same street as Russell T Davies, eh? Oh, and I'm, comes from Doctor Who from a completely different perspective, because, I mean, I'm not sure how I'm allowed to know somebody, and also how somebody can have a beard when they were brought up in the wilderness years. Surely those people are still infants. But I very much liked Steffan's presentation. For those of you that can't see, he's because this is audio and visual. Well, it will be visual at some point. The visuals come out much later. He was doing his intro in front of posters of the Jodie Whittaker TARDIS era crew, which, as I record this, is about to come to its end. We have 2 episodes of Jodie Whittaker left, but. These have Bradley Walsh and Tosin Cole, so not even the current, but I still think of them. I still think of Peter Capaldi as relatively new. I still think of the episode we're about to watch, The God Complex, which is one I've seen a few times, and it is, I have to say, possibly my favourite of that season. So we're starting well, but let's see what we make of it. So I have it on BBC iPlayer, but however you have it, you're going to press play in 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, I pressed pause. It's never a good start. This podcast never starts well because it starts with me. I love the production design of this hotel, but I remember being particularly struck. Look at that shadow on the wall. And that's very The Shining, isn't it? With the low level camera sort of creeping along the sort of plush, but very very colourful. But as we'll discover, it's all quite naff. The design of the hotel deliberately hotel carpet. Now Damon Jeffrey. Now I've got to talk. I know this is a brilliant opening, but the clown was in Survival. He's one of the people that have been in Old and New Who, but he's in a different subcategory because he's an extra. He's not credited. I think he was a cheetah person in Survival, but he's also the guy Dave who goes, "Oh no," and gets got at the beginning. He's an actor, but he does supporting artist work. I know he was in a production of Emlyn Williams' Someone Waiting, I think in Telford, because it was in it as an young amateur actor, and my friend went to see this other production and got the programme for me, and it said Damon Jeffrey playing my part as an actor, and he's been in Doctor Who, and so then he jumped out at the list of supporting artists in Classic Who, because I don't know the names of all of those. I know the names of quite a lot of them. But what am I doing? I'm talking about a man who's in its first... I think he comes back later. But I like that link that he has with Survival. But we're not talking about this character who does not make it beyond the opening titles. But we feel for her. And she gives a very good performance. But she's there to do that thing that many people we meet at the beginning of Doctor Who do, which is die. And we have this amazing, I think it's a debut on Doctor Who, from Nick Curran, the director, who I think put that entire pre-credit sequence together magnificently. And I love the addition of the typeface and praise him written down but the timing of the monster appearing, the use of shadow, the use of out of focus. It's a really disturbing and intriguing opening. That whole opening is really, it's got so much. It's got the room with the clown and the gorilla and all of that sort of thing. So it's raising a lot of questions. I love Matt Smith, but I think Nick Curran's a really really good director, and I think that will be shown. Look at that shot, that sort of aerial shot with all the stairs winding down, and it's superb. Amy Beakey. And Matt Smith's just great, isn't he? I'm a big fan of Matt Smith. I think the fact that he looks like he's sort of been flung around a story is brilliant. His body language is extraordinary. And the cheese plant now, because isn't it? I can't remember. Isn't it supposed to be a NAF? It's a NAF Earth hotel, isn't it? I've got a feeling I was staying in a Britannia. Other not very good hotels are available. A Britannia hotel when I watched this, and certainly, I think the attention to detail of the production design of these places is very evocative. But then it's shot to make it, in a science fiction, spooky, unnerving way. But the colours all work brilliantly, and I love this that all the people who that's Marcus Wilson. That is Marcus Wilson, the producer. Who has he been to this house? Now I've only sort of spoken to him very briefly a couple of times, but he does a lot of work with trying to get disabled people more better access to work in television via my partner's charity that she founded called Dank, and one of the first producers she got on board, who's now a board member, was Marcus Wilson, and I don't think he knows the whole Doctor Who thing I've got going, because it's never seemed appropriate to bring it up because we've not met under Doctor Who circumstances, but that was him on the picture, and I love the fact that everyone's in a school uniform. So clever, Doctor Who, when it plays upon our sort of childhood memories. I love the Doctor's reaction to Rita, who I'm sure we'll talk about. And here's David Williams, who I think actually gets lost slightly in the mix, although that's such a great joke. Our national anthem, insert name here. And I think, is he called Dimitri Leonidas, this actor, as Howie the geek? But I think he's a really nicely judged and played geek. He's no WizKid, and there's nothing wrong with WizKid. I think WizKid is great fun, but it's a different style of show and characterization, and this does that, that great Doctor Who thing of, it's a base under siege, but it's a terrible hotel under siege, and here are the characters that we're going to meet and we're going to care for. And this sort of program is my meat and drink. I love, people say, season 5 gets very repetitive because it's all people stuff, base getting picked off. I'm like, that's Doctor Who to me. And at Christmas we used to watch the Poseidon Adventure, throw a load of people together, have them menaced by something. It reminds me a bit of a comic strip in Eagle that I had called House of Damon, was it called? And I can't remember the details of it. It's actually now lining my cupboard under the stairs because I hung on to my legal comics because they will be worth a fortune one day. And then looked at them on eBay, and it was like $250 for a $5. But I didn't want to throw them away, having hauled them around the country. I'd had them longer than I've had wives. And Shez said, why don't you... So we've wallpapered the shed and the cupboard under the stairs, and I've done a bit of decoupage on this shelving behind me with Doomlord. But House of Damon, I think, is in the cupboard under the stairs, and that was a group of people in a house that sort of one of them got pulled down a whirlpool, and a different one sort of died every week. It turned out in the end they were all okay. But that was it. It was basically who's gonna get picked off this week, and that is, that's drama I can very much get an angle on. I love Amara Karan, the actress playing Rita. I think she's terrific. This character made a real impression on me. And this, I'd totally forgotten about this. Look at that. That's a leaf out. I love the bit in The Empty Child when the monkey with the cymbal starts going for reasons that I'm not sure are ever explained. But these ventriloquists dummies sort of remind me a bit of that, taking a sort of old toy, and because it's old it then has an association with death and the passage of time and mortality, and that opens the door to mortality. So there's something a bit spooky about toys, added to which the fact that old ventriloquist dummies are really weird looking. I think that's a great image, and the brilliant use of slightly tilted camera and out of focus foreground and background. I mean, no spoiler alert, Nick Curran is definitely going to be one of my choices because, and I could see why they asked him to do the 50th anniversary, because I think he is such a good director. He's got such a sympathy for the material. He knows exactly what he's doing. This guy's great as well. Daniel Piri is having to do that difficult thing of slightly sort of deranged acting, but he's got a nice sort of he's got the slight detachment, right, but also he's got the slight oddness, but also that's really spooky, and the way that they keep going, it's and this has started at a lick. We've had the pre-titles. We realise that the doors have walls behind them, so they're trapped in, and something is going very wrong. And Smith is great because I think he really judges the tone of the drama right. Oh, look, a cassette. He's got a brilliant face, hasn't he? And I love that the film, the occasional shots we get of the hotel security camera. He's very funny, David Williams. I forgot, but as I say, when I think of this, I don't really think of his part so much, which is oddly normally because we'd go, well, he's the main guest star, he's the famous one, but actually it's very much an ensemble piece. And then that's very. Here comes the chopper to chop off your head. Always invoke an old nursery rhyme. To make things even scarier. So they do that in 1984, don't they? Mr. Charrington says it when Winston and Julia get caught because they. Anyway, let's not get into that. This is great. The camera on the trolley. And of course, because he's doing a great performance here, because he is a bit of a Burke, is Howie, but he's not playing that. He's playing the absolute truth of it. And I love that line. You've come up with a theory even more insane than what's actually happening because of his conspiracy theory. Because conspiracy theorists are really annoying. Sorry if you are one. But he manages to make it likeable. And that, I totally get the PE teacher making you do it in your pants. It's such a brilliant idea, isn't it? That there's something in every room is room 101, basically. There's something in your room that is a terrible thing. And having sort of gone, Howie's a bit of a Burke. Oh, that's brilliant. All that cutting. And because he had a stammer. So having sort of introduced him as a kind of, he's a bit of a conspiracy theorist, you now feel really, really sorry for him. Because I think there are quite a few Doctor Who fans who've had, if not groups of girls laughing at them, either ignoring them or just wanting to be their friend, or generally just making them feel disappointed in themselves somehow, even if they didn't mean to. But those girls meant to. So, but also the PE teacher, you could tell this is written by a Doctor Who fan. You got a PE teacher and mocking girls, Toby Whithouse. But there are other real spooky things as well. I just love the way Matt Smith walks. And he's slightly and that's clever, isn't it? Because that's the horns have scraped the ceiling, haven't they? It's so good. Yes. And Rory can see an exit. Now that's a plot point, isn't it? This is brilliant. Because it's spooky and it's intriguing. And that central premise of there being a room for everybody that is the thing that makes you scared. Yes. And here's a sad fact. Up until Toby Whithouse's latest episode, The Lie of the Land, every single episode of his of New Who has a cast member who has passed away in it. I told him this, and he was like, "Really? I'm not sure he was over." And it was actually before The Lie of the Land, so actually it was every one of your. And the sadly passed away person in this he's called Rashid Karapiet, who's the guy that plays Rita's dad, who is an actor who's done loads of really interesting stuff, a handful of lines here, but had a very interesting life and career, and died not too long after this. I think he got an obit in The Guardian. I read about it in the newspaper anyway. And realised, oh gosh, there's more to that actor who, is a small part in one particular episode of Doctor Who than initially you might think, because really good actors with illustrious histories sometimes need to do parts that are 2 or 3 lines these days. But yes, it means that up until The Lie of the Land, yes, there's because there's Elizabeth Sladen in School Reunion. There's the guy Neil Fingleton who played the Fisher King in the Before the Flood, that one, and the preacher in A Town Called Mercy. Anyway, you don't want another. Wait, in a conversation with Toby Hadoke, you're no more than 6 sentences away from a list of the dead. They look slightly animated. Those. Was that clever animation? They the release of his bonds, but poor old Joe. I think he does a really good performance, and I love all that cutting from a smile to a scream to the praise him in different letters and the quick and the fast. It's such a smart directorial choice that is offbeat. It's unsettling. It's original. And actually that's brilliant, because the dragging of the feet round the corner is desperately awful and actually quite comical. It's look at the way he runs. He's like, and the cutting is sympathetic to the performance. It's the way that it is cut is sort of conjuring the way that the Doctor is sort of careering from place to place. I think all doctors, irrespective of having big speeches and chemistry tests with the putative companions, I think all doctors should have a screen test where they run up and down corridors. Running down corridors, to coin a phrase, available from all good bookshops, that's right, yeah, and such a great choice to have him eyes open, sitting up, not the usual way we expect to see somebody dead. And now we've got a sort of craney type shot from the ceiling, superb, and the kettle kicking in, and then joining in with a sonic screwdriver. But I love the way that Matt Smith runs. He runs almost like he's a sort of he's a puppet whose bottom half is being blown one way down the corridor and whose Geppetto is at the other end pulling, and he's sort of careening. He's like a sort of disjointed epileptic marionette, and it really gives him a sort of urge, because Davison has that thing, doesn't he, where he chooses the wrong corridor and comes back, and and David Tennant does it as well, doesn't he, in Army of Ghosts, but Smith almost does a sort of he's like sort of silly putty, sort of surging around one corner and then being sort of pulled back the other. It's great subtle makeup job on David Walliams there, and it must be the trick to it is you still want the viewers at home to know it's David Walliams, but there's something sort of dormousey about them. They like and that sort of has affected the way he's done his performance. But I think, of course, if the Weeping Angels were there, I think that. Oh, and he's sly, isn't he? Oh, that little raised eyebrow. Oh, and that self-satisfied little smirk. He's horrible, and that's clever. That's a great line. Whenever the Doctor gets pally with somebody, I get an overwhelming urge to notify their next of kin. I love Rory, and I think Arthur Darvill's brilliant. They're a great TARDIS team, this, actually, because they've just done, haven't they, The Girl Who Waited, which I thought was also an excellent episode. But they're sly, the Tivoli. I'm sure we'll get to David Walliams. I really like this actress, and she's just got her own series on the BBC, and Shez and I tend to watch sort of British independent movies as well, sort of romantic comedies and things like that. There's loads of them that you don't know exist that you can find on Netflix and places. And she was in one about rival curry houses that we watched. I was pleased that she got the lead in that. She's really, really good. She's really charismatic. I think she's got a real lightness of touch without taking a sly glance at the material. Do you know what I mean? And this is interesting. That's a great response. And you're a Muslim, don't be frightened. It's very, very funny. And that's it. And I was going to say, and actually it's very refreshing to have, a Muslim character where it's not all about the fact that they're Muslim. That's not important. But it sort of kind of is. And yet it's done deftly enough that we don't come out of this going, oh well, the only reasons Rita's in it is because of her religion. It's an organic part of her, and so and it's important to her, but not in a way that it's the only part of her character. But it would be wrong to say, but it doesn't matter, because it actually does. It still speaks to the subtext. But I think it's very nicely done, and I like the "Don't be frightened" response. And Doctor Who is a series that, if it wants to, can take the mickey out of religion, and I think that's fine too. But because when you're dealing with all in time and space, the ideas of gods can seem a little bit quaint. But he's very respectful there, and she's not seen as being foolish for believing in something, which is interesting for a series that can sometimes be quite glib about such things. Of course, so the gorilla was hers, that's right. Oh yes, and because the gaps between my worshippers are like contractions. That's a really clever sort of scientific rationale or explanation for why what is happening is what is happening. And it's quite... and that's beautiful, because it's an involuntary thing. He doesn't realise that he said it. He reminds me a bit of my son, actually. Oh, this is so sad. Oh, because that's really horrible. There's something worse, isn't there, about the idea that somebody might know that they're doomed. Do you know what I mean? You sort of say, "Oh, I'd rather not know anything about it." And then you go, "Well, I'd like to, because I'd like to prepare and say goodbye to people." But this is horrible, because it's like he's in the waiting room at death row. He said praise him, so he knows that he's kind of doomed, and we see that as sort of extra specially tragic, because he's got knowledge of his own. He's been forewarned of his own imminent demise, and that's really horrible. That's a bit like a line in Horror Fang Rock, isn't it? You know, do you think that whatever it is will satisfy its appetite by the time it gets to you? I think Skinsale says it to Lord Palmerdale, which is a nice line, which I used a sort of variation of in my adaptation of Nigel Neal's The Road. This, I love the way that the Doctor sort of brings Gibbis brings him to task here. For all Matt Smith's light eccentricity, when he needs to turn on the severe, he really does it, but he never, or he very rarely, he can do it quietly. And behind that smile, there's a threat. And I think David Walliams is great, and I think it's a great idea for a character, because it seems like it's a joke. Oh, we just like getting conquered, but actually, it's oppressive submissiveness, which is a really great idea and very well put together. Oh, poor old. Oh, so yes, that's right. So they have to. They have to get Howie into the place to find out the information. So that that works. That's a useful way of them solving some of the plot.
He's going to kill us all. How cool is that?
Oh yeah, it's look at all the attention to detail in the set dressing as well. But there's so good use of close-ups in this. I wonder if it's because I'm watching it on a big telly now, which I wouldn't have done at the time. As I say, I think I watched it on a small hotel telly, or even on my laptop in a hotel. I can't remember. But this, I haven't. But seeing it on the big screen as I am, the big sort of close-ups that you've got of everybody really help for the atmosphere. Although that close-up there of Matt Smith was a nice big hero shot. These corridors are great for cameras creeping down slowly. And we still haven't seen the creature in full. We've had really extreme close-ups. Oh, that's great. So that's the chandelier wobbling. There's a hair salon as well. Oh, and with water and the fish. And that wallpaper. Oh yes, because it's all done through sort of dripping water, isn't it? And mirrors. Oh, and then you've got, having had the shadow of the Minotaur, which is really scary, we then have the shadow of Arthur Darville's mop, Rory's mop. Oh, yay! Damon Jeffrey off of Survival. Don't talk to the clown. Oh yes, and there's the explanation for why there's broken ceiling. This is great because so much has happened, and it feels like we're getting a bit of a climax now. Although actually much more to come. But okay, now he's confronting the monster, and this is brilliantly shot through that water. And through the mirrors, which of course, because this is all reminiscent, because it's a Minotaur, it's reminiscent of the Greek myths, and that's got the Medusa thing where you could only look at her through the mirror. So it just helps you to make a little bit of sense of the monster if it's sort of depicted and told in terms that we've got a sort of that we've got a background in a way, because it's part of our historical teachings, as it were, a part of our myths and legends. And yeah, look at and this enables Nick Curran to do all sorts of clever bits of really interesting shooting. You don't get this sort of thing in a lot of TV drama. This is so cleverly shot, the way that we see the different versions of the Doctor and different bits of the different reflections, or and the focus and the out of focus. It's really clever, and of course he's related to the Naimon, isn't he? That's right. And of course, yes, because the Doctor still hasn't worked out quite what's going on, and it's not. And it also makes you feel the loss of everybody in this, doesn't it, as well? And he's so young. This is also the terrible thing, because when I was a kid watching Doctor Who, anyone that died was a grown-up, but now I'm watching it and you watch characters younger than you. I'm probably old enough to be his dad. Do you know what I mean? And then you suddenly go, God, so young. And then you go, oh no, I'm so old. And it makes you aware of your own mortality. And only in Doctor Who could you have the hero confronting a giant Minotaur alien in a hair salon. But so well shot. And this could be quite clunky, but it just works. But partially because the Minotaur, the design is so good, you get a real sadness emanating from that, latex creature, and having the Doctor translate its dialogue, if you like, its thoughts, or means your main actor gets to do some lovely stuff. Oh, poor old Howie. And so then we have another. I love the way he does that with his hands. Matt Smith, brilliant, because it's the Patrick Troughton thing of you've got a. He's got a comedic gait, but it never spoils the drama. It never makes you think you're watching a comedy, but it helps with the sort of urgency. But the cast aside glasses means that we know poor old Howie hasn't made it. But that sort of comedy run, it's not a stupid run, because it's genuinely the character's body language. Oh, look at that, the chief. That's sort of the Chief Brody shot, isn't it? Where the person in the foreground stays in focus, and then they do something with the wide lens. You know what I mean? It's where the background all sort of is it? You keep focus on the foreground and you pull back on that. You know what I mean? The bit in Jaws where he sees the shark, and it's a thing. It's a thing with the lens. And that's. They're brilliantly long corridors, but you can smell those corridors. You can feel that carpet, actually. It's a great piece of design. Michael Pickwoad, isn't it? I think Michael Pickwoad was a fantastic production designer. And I met him. He was such a nice chap. Oh, do you know what I like? I like the way Karen Gillan stands when she pulls up short, having run towards something, and it's a stance in quite a lot of posters. And that's a clever sort of misdirect, because we're used to the monster sort of coming around the corner out of focus, and now we've got a different kind of monster, and the Doctor's disgust is etched on his face. But again, he has no need for histrionics. But that's such a sad image. But again, it's quite disturbing, the fact that they still look sort of like a parody of Being Alive, because he's sitting with his eyes open. But the school tie thing that they've got going on with the sort of Wall of the Dead is again, it's just anything that reminds us of our childhood. And I see somebody in a sort of school tie and shirt, and I can smell the sort of soap and the deodorant and the just what clothes smell. And he's just got over a massive stammer as well, which is I have a slight. That's a great shot. Not all victory is about saving the universe, and that is very true, and that is key to that. And the fish survived. The fish survived the onslaught of the Minotaur beast. I really like her character. She's so good. Very much a sort of companion in waiting. And yes, of course, and that's always it's quite a god complex. And hang on, isn't that another great thing? The title. And there's a joke in Horns of Nimon, isn't there? he lives in the power complex. That fits. And this is God complex, and it's a play on words. It's a complex with a god living in it, and also she accuses the Doctor of having a god complex. It's a brilliant dual title. Oh, don't ask her to go with you, Doctor. She's doomed.
Whatever it was, I have a feeling you just did it again.
Right down to the smallest detail.
Yeah, that's great. The black and white security camera stuff is really great. Gives us another perspective. And she's doing here. Oh God! And that cuts. That's like an icicle through your heart. Because the Doctor's sort of, just done his flirty, will you be my companion thing. And now he's charging about doing his own thing, and he's left her behind, and, she's in real danger. And there's a Chief Brody shot there as well. Oh, yes, because he looks in, doesn't he? And we don't know what he sees, and I love that, because you can... Oh, and of course it's the cloister bell. Of course it is. Who else? Oh, and I think, is it later? Is it Amos Crack? I think it might be. But I think my feeling was it was probably himself. I think we can all. Oh yes, just give us eat the fish. Just in case, because you're not sure, because the scene between him and Howie, it could have been that Howie did, sort of, he did try and show a little bit of resistance, but it's just to get no, he's not to be trusted. He's a horrible little mouse thing. This I remember. Yes. What's she doing? But she's, and this is great because it's a hotel. We suddenly have the, he's seeing everything. It's sort of Kirk. It's Kirk and Spock, isn't it? With Spock on the other side of the glass. So he's communicating with her, but they can't touch. They can't get to each other. And the way that she reacts to this, I get quite teary. It makes me really emotional. I think I am a sucker for somebody being brave in the face of death in television programs. I think the way I want to go is, I might have said this before, I want to be injured and say, leave me, I'll hold them off. That's the way I want to go. Or I'll stay behind on the spaceship because you're never going to get, I'll only slow you down and I'll crash it into the whatever. And she's so brave here. Let me be robbed of my faith in private. I think that's so... And the fact that she says that she's not frightened. Oh, God. I'm at peace. And it's such a grown-up way of the whole show dealing with this. Bearing in mind it's a show about a Minotaur in a Britannia hotel. I find this gut-wrenching, and I find the fact that the Doctor can talk to her, but he can't grab her, he can't save her. The fact it then goes into a bit of slow-mo as well. The fact that she puts her arms out like that and lets it come. I find it really, really choking and emotional and moving, and I think it's one of the great death scenes in Doctor Who. And death scenes are important to Doctor Who. And the fact that she smiles as she sees it, it's so... heartbreaking, and then he turns the telly off. I find that really moving and really affecting, and it's a credit to Amara Karan as well, who's made her such a great character. She's a great character on paper as well, but you know there's still quite a lot of the story to go. And it's brilliant that we see the Doctor, but only just out of focus and at the end of shot, and we're actually, we've got a close up of the wonderful Karen Gillan. And Amy is sitting with Rory as we get the sort of big outpouring of the Doctor's emotion, and that's a really far more effective way of showing it. And he said, of course, through all that, one of the probably the most emotional bit of the whole story. You've got the occurrence of and then aftermath of, and that's very well remembered to be going, I've just eaten the fish, I'll pick one of its bones out of my teeth. We've got that that comedy moment of the fact that he's eaten the goldfish during it. Oh, I love this program. It's so good. And that's brilliant that you think it's go. So the Doctor's done some clever working out here, hasn't he? You got the dice cufflinks, and that's where the fact that Rita had her faith. They fall back on their faith, whereas in Curse of Fenric, your faith is what protects you. This is actually it's provoking the faith that provides the succor for the beast, and that is very clever, because I think it would have been clever enough to go show you the thing you fear, and if you fight it with your faith, because that makes sense, that's sort of psychic energy, whatever. But actually, it's a bluff, because it's the finding of the faith that arms the creature and gives it its strength. So it's taking what would have been a perfectly reasonable plot idea and taking a little bit further, and of course that has an impact. That was a lovely little moment for Rory to, he still can't quite handle her faith in the Doctor. So faith is the emotion that the creature needs to live. Yeah. And now she said it. That was very clever, the way that's thrown into the drama. And then their looks, both of those actors' looks are brilliant. So he thinks she's answering the question, but actually, no, she is next. So good. It's brilliant. It works brilliant on every level. I don't know anyone who I don't know how anyone can not think this is an absolutely brilliant piece of Doctor Who. I think it's got everything, and the monster runs as well. Yeah, because look, I love the way she stands. I don't know, she's brilliant at standing. Matt Smith's brilliant at running. She's brilliant at standing. It's funny because around this time, and it's always a delight to see Amelia Pond. Oh, is there a better image in Doctor Who than that girl with the red boots on her suitcase, just innocently waiting for the Doctor to come and get her? It's heartbreaking. I'm sometimes not wild about the companions being an enigma to solve or something like that. But I do think the Amy Pond story of her waiting for the Doctor and him not coming back, and then him coming back years later, it throws open a lot of really interesting things, and it ties in with the fact that we discover the Doctor in our childhood, and in a way the Doctor is the focal point of a lot of the highs and lows of my childhood, because it was the one constant thing that made me happy. That it was either an accompaniment to other moments of great happiness, or a comfort in moments at the other end of the spectrum. So I actually think it's a genius idea, actually, to tie Amy in with her childhood and her relationship into the Doctor with her childhood. A madman in a box, and I love that madman in a box. It's great. And it's actually very heartbreaking, and it actually, because I always consider this story to be a sort of self-contained one, and less of a sort of mythology one. But of course, they leave at the end of this, so it's not. But that's funny, because I don't think of it in that way, even though this moment, kicks into what happens at the end of this episode, which has some ramifications for the long term of these characters. But I think of this as less of an arc. I wonder why. Maybe just because it's all set in the hotel. I don't know. I think of this as less of an arc story, even though it's got plenty of arc stuff in it. Karen Gillan, knew, but only sort of knew, a friend of my then wife's, and they all ended up going out for a drink together. And she was in Doctor Who, and I still never quite figured out how they all ended up going out. Then there was a picture of Catherine with Karen Gillan, and she went out. Well, do you have a nice night? Yeah. And we were, Karen Gillan, and it was only a small handful of them. But sometimes bizarre how I think back to some of these things and go, did that actually happen? And it did. It was definitely not a dream. And Caitlin Blackwood met my stepson Ethan at a convention, and he was sort of quite near to her age, and he's deaf and had some sort of socialization issues, and she was so delightful with him. She was really, really kind and sweet to him. I was very impressed by her. And that's out of sound now. We're suddenly in science fiction, and this is a very simple sort of deconstruction of the set. Distant cousin of the Naimon. Love that. you can invoke the horns of Naimon, but it makes absolute sense. Prisons. Oh, it's a bit Sapphire and Steel, isn't it? And you've got to love a bit of Sapphire and Steel. It's like a sort of box looking out into space. There's my planet. I love the way he does that. Very good, David Walliams. But again, I always sort of forget he's in this. She's stunningly beautiful, isn't she, Karen Gillan? And very good. I don't always get on with the character of Amy Pond. I don't know why. Perhaps we'll discover as I watch more of these. But I don't know why watching this, because I think she's absolutely great in this. It's no criticism of Karen Gillan, who I think is brilliant. And I think in the previous adventure, The Girl Who Waited, gives an absolutely phenomenal performance. And she's stunningly beautiful. And she's funny. And as I say, I love the way she stands. So I wonder what it is, because I haven't seen a lot of these for a long time. And I love the way in the Doctor is so unsqueamish about dealing with a sort of giant bull monster. It reminds me a bit of the way that Pertwee is with Agador. There's no squeamishness there at all. But that's a beautiful moment, where the Minotaur creature is not talking about himself. He's talking about you, Doctor. And that speaks to the great sadness within the Doctor. And I quite like that. I don't think it needs to be mined too deeply, but if there is an inherent melancholy about somebody who's seen the beginning and end of time and everyone in between, because everyone he knows is dead. Everyone, all he has to do is jump in his box and travel forward 200 years, and everyone he's just spent time with is dead. And the Doctor lives a long time as well, so that adds to that. And so all of his friendships can only be transient, even if they're intense 3-year ones, because in the great scheme of things, they are much smaller than an intense 3 years would be, say, for me or you, because we're humans, and 3 years in our time scale is shorter. I love Rory. He's so good. And it's funny because I'm assuming they're the same kind of age, but you really do buy. And Arthur and Rory can do that sort of familiar stuff with him, but you still do buy that these people are separated by the nature of what they are. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, and he's great at that. He's got the old man and young man's body. And didn't Stephen Moffat say he was like a bad drawing of a handsome man, which I think is a great description of his face, because he's beautiful, but he is slightly out. His face is not the sort of classical shape of a beautiful man. It is slightly pulled and pummeled, and yeah. He's an interesting looking guy. Great casting for the Doctor. He's a really instinctive Doctor, and I wasn't wild about the idea of a younger Doctor at all, and I think he's so good. I think he's really brilliant. He's totally Doctor Who. He's totally Doctor Who. Yes. Yeah. Oh.
You can't just drop me off at my house and say goodbye like we shared a car.
And I'm not, I know friends of mine who aren't keen on Doctor Who being emotional, but I've never had a problem with that. And I mean, I cried when Sarah Jane left and when Zoe and Jamie left. And I've cried at the Target book of the War Games when Zoe and Jamie left because I was appalled, and I was also appalled at the idea that they'd had their memories wiped. I'm still deep down very angry about that. So, and that was as emotional as you could get in sort of kid-friendly telly in those days, I'm guessing. Whereas we're more attuned to that sort of stuff now. So I'm perfectly on board with the soppy stuff, so long as it is done like anything, so long as it is done well. And I think this is done very well in this episode. And I remember being quite pleased to see them sort of settle down. That idea that after the tumult of being buffeted through some quite emotional adventures, and look at the light coming in from the TARDIS. It's just little bits like that. Oh, that's a great wave, and the look on his face. And brilliantly acted by those two. Brilliantly acted. Really high quality stuff. And I do like the old big TARDIS too. Yeah, I think that's terrific. And yes, because of course in the old series, the TARDIS didn't sort of make leaves blow around and things like that. I like all those additions that we've had with New Who, that now we can do a few more things. If it's because, I don't know, if there's more time or more resources or whatever it is. And that idea that he's saving us, is really very, very moving. It's a bit of self-sacrifice, and that is a terrific shot of the Doctor's face in the sort of melted hourglass central. What is it? What are they called? The egg timery type thing in the middle of the central console. I do like that. I like the TARDIS with the when it's made of bric-a-brac. I'm much more of a it should be bric-a-brac. I'm not a fan of the it's grown. It's all shells and organic. I like the it's a high-tech piece of equipment that has over the years fallen to bits and has been mended by hammering a gramophone and an egg timer and some chess pieces. And doesn't Jodie Whittaker have custard creams? I like that. And here's closing time coming up, which, gosh, I haven't seen for ages. But anyway, nobody's chosen that. Nobody has chosen that. Don't do that. Thank you. Sorry, I was just stopping the credits from shrinking. And now, did the Next Time trailers make it onto the DVD? I know on the DVDs of the year before they got chopped off, and I remember being furious about that because you sort of go, well, let's not get into that, but yeah, for people who buy Doctor Who on DVD like it to be the programme that they watched, and that includes the Next Time trailer, which has been on all the previous DVDs. Some highly paid person, so I went, I think what I'm going to carry it. Yeah, I think what we need to do is get rid of the Next Time trailers because I think that's going with the zeitgeist. I want to kidnap that person and tell them why they were wrong. Anyway, I'm still furious about it, which is probably why I haven't got the DVD from the shelf. But I don't even think it was this season. See, now that's me being a typical Doctor Who fan. I'm getting furious about something that actually doesn't pertain to, and I've invented a person to be annoyed with. Unnecessary anger. That's what's in the room, the hotel room of your average Doctor Who fan of my age. I really enjoyed that. What is Steffan Alun going to choose as his what? Oh no, I've got to choose my 5 things. Well, Nick Hurren, the director, number 1. Just because I think it's so confident for all the reasons I outlined there. There was so many, just from the choice of what to focus on, the creepy camera up the thing, that cutting, and the typing and all of that sort of stuff, which I thought was, and the scream, then the smile, and brilliant, all the different that Nick Hurren, everything about Nick Hurren's direction, I thought was superb. I would also choose Rita's death, which I think is an extraordinarily moving scene, really well done. It's dramatic and it's moving, and also it's got a little spine to it. Gibbous eating the fish, but I think I think, can I sort of say Rita and Rita's, because Rita's death works partially because of the work of Amara Karan throughout the episode to make that character. She's a great character on paper as well, but it's a really good performance. She's, you really feel the impact of that loss, which, so her character arc, if you like, comes to an end with her death. Of course it does. But I think that's an accumulation of all the goodwill that she's given us. So Rita's death. Yes, I'm going to have that. I think the central wheeze of having hotel rooms with your biggest fear inside them, is a great, that whole central, well, I can't say too many elements of it, but the base under siege element. But I think that hook of behind the door is your greatest fear is a great basis for a Doctor Who story. I will also choose the production design, the hotel, which I think is magnificent. And it allows for those tracking camera shots. I think the colours are all superb, because it's not all dark and spooky, although it is in certain places, and yet it is still scary because of the various shots you can get in it, and that's a tribute to a really good piece of design, that it doesn't go we'll turn all the lights off and make it dark and moody. It's actually quite sort of plush and also quite naff. And very evocative of the place that that they're trapped in, and yet it allows us all sorts of great visuals. So that's 4. What is my 5th? Well, I particularly like the typed, the praise him, that bit that they have whenever anyone gets taken over, of the scream, the smile, the close-up, the writing of the praise him, the quick cutting. I know that probably comes in with Nick Curran's direction, but I think that particular bit, it's unique to that story, and it's so clever, and it does so much that I think I'm going to give it its own place. So there we go. Those are my 5 things: Nick Curran's direction, Rita's death, the production design, the core idea of having the thing you fear behind a door, and the praise him. What has Steffan chosen? Thing 1.
Okay, let's talk about what I love from the God Complex. The first thing, this has to be number 1, I bet Toby guessed this, is the character of Rita. And not just the character, everything about her, the writing, the performance, it all comes together. She might be my favourite, one of my favourite sort of one-off characters of all time. She's only in this episode, but actually I even think, she deserves the companion status for my mind. She's sort of a very classic Doctor Who companion. She's clever and brave. And she's not just clever, her mind works almost sideways, in this lateral way where she's constantly not just working out what's going on, she's thinking about what might be going on. The fact that she thinks, I wonder if this is hell, and if so, what does that mean? She's not scared of the idea that she might be in hell. This is just another thing. Her faith will pull her through. I love that her faith is so important to her. I think we see a lot in Doctor Who. Doctor Who can do a good job of representing people from marginalised groups, and I think Rita is the best example. For a lot of the audience, I think a lot of people watching Doctor Who won't personally know any people of the Muslim faith, and I think Rita's an amazing example of someone for whom her faith is really important to her, but it's also not everything about her. I love the performance choices. I love when she laughs, it's not like a lazy actorly laugh. It's, the performer has thought about the way that this character puts herself across. She's such a fully formed character. When she's afraid or when she's upset, she's really thought about what that should look like on her face. I should have looked up the name of the actor. I think she's called Karam Ahara. Is that right? Sorry if that's not right. She's absolutely wonderful. Hugely underrated, I think. I'd love to see her in more stuff. So that's it. It's the character that still breaks my heart that she couldn't be a full-time Doctor Who companion. And that is Rita.
Oh, very nicely put. And I get a point. Very nicely put. And it is. It's Amara Karan. And when Steffan recorded this, she hadn't got her own series on BBC One, but she has now. So his wish that he could see her in more things has been fulfilled. But I can't now remember the name of the series. But she's the lead. It's a police thingy. Right. Cozy police drama, I think. Right. Not enough aliens for me. We have a thing in this house whenever we're watching something that the other half wants to watch. I always go, so which ones are the aliens then? And it's a joke I'd never get tired of. And never will. So, good thing too. Yes, so I agree. Rita is ace. No, Rita's not ace. That would be a real twist, wouldn't it? Rita is superb, well written, well acted, and it means that Steffan and I. Well, no, I'm ahead. I am ahead. So I'm gonna enjoy that for the brief moment it lasts, because I'm sure we're not going to get two things in a row. Steffan's choice number 2.
The second thing I love about the God Complex is the hotel. The hotel itself is such a character in this story, I think. I grew up watching old Doctor Who and collecting them on VHSs. And you'd realise, a lot of the time they didn't quite have the production budget for huge, lavish sets. But the best stories, I think, are the ones where the set is part of the storytelling, the aesthetic. I think the idea of setting it not just in a hotel, this story, but in an 80s hotel, and a slightly, in some ways, an off-putting one. It's sort of slightly twee, it's slightly kitsch, perhaps. And I think the production team have done an amazing job between the set dressing and the design, the wallpaper, the carpets. I don't know how much of that was already there when they found their location and how much was added on, but it really brings it to life. I can smell it, I feel, when I watch it. I feel I can feel the dust in the air of this sort of slightly static hotel with airs above its graces. So I love the hotel. I love not just the corridors, but the little rooms, when we see, like, it's got a hairdressing salon in it, which is such a sort of eccentric choice, but it feels true. I realise it's not a real hotel, but it really feels like one. It feels like it really exists. The fact that the photos on the wall, the characters are dressed in this sort of stiff school uniform style. Everything about it brings to life this 80s period. The fact that there's a Rubik's Cube, not a point is made of it. It's a little prop the Doctor plays with. But it really brings to life the 80s without having to do any sort of big in-your-face kind of, this is the 80s stuff. It's just brought to life by the set dressing.
Yeah, well put. And I'd forgotten. I was obviously thinking about something else when the Rubik's Cube appeared. But yeah, it's very cleverly evocative. But I'm interested that it has that effect on Steffan, because I am from 1980. Well, I was born in 1974. So, that's and I think I said when, the pictures were on the wall, it reminded me of, being the smells of that time, because that's where I was. I went to school in the 1980s, so that's very much up my memory lane, as it were. Well, I've got 2 points out of 2, because I think that the hotel counts, doesn't it? I said the production design of the hotel, but I meant the hotel. No, I'm having a point for that. So, number 3. He's got to choose the director. Come on.
The third thing I love is the mystery. I'm a sucker for a mystery show. I was a huge fan of The Prisoner, that 60s brilliant, terrific show, which is so mind-bending and gives more questions than answers. I was a huge fan of Lost, I'll admit it, and I went off Lost when I was getting too many answers and too little mystery. Life on Mars, I think I liked watching Life on Mars and sort of trying to work out what it all meant, and I always preferred working it out to getting the answers. So I love a mystery, and my favourite Doctor Who episodes are the mystery ones, where other stories like that include things like Heaven Sent, and is it Excelsior? Is that the Peter Capaldi episode that features the Pope? You're always sort of wondering what's going on here, and I think that's something Doctor Who can do really well. So I love the mystery. I love that. The first thing I saw of the God Complex was the trailer the week before, the Next Time trailer, which you see these kind of images of sad clowns in hotel rooms, or PE teachers, or the Weeping Angels. How can the Weeping Angels be in this if it's not an angel's story? It just throws these images at you, and you've got to be constantly sort of trying to piece it together. So I love the mystery.
Well, I don't get a point for that. Oh, can he bring it up from behind? Yes. I haven't got much to add to that. He's an excellent guest, isn't he, Steffan? I love his enthusiasm and the way he's describing and enunciating the things that he likes. I do like hearing other people talking about. That's what I sort of like about this show, is hearing other people, get enthused about the show that we love. And I'm really liking his enthusiasm that I think is far more eloquent than mine has been so far this evening.
The fourth thing I love, Toby, you won't have guessed this, I think. It's such a tiny detail, but to me it's the heart and soul of what Doctor Who is. It's the fact that the Doctor loves tiny details. It's that moment at the start where he's excited about a plant. He's excited about a bowl full of apples. He's looking at every tiny detail in that hotel. I've already spoken about how much I love about the hotel set dressing and the design, but it's the fact that the Doctor loves it as well. I think when I watch a great episode of Doctor Who, it makes me want to lean in closer and examine every tiny little bit. It makes me want to question, why are they in that costume? Why was that musical cue chosen? What exactly are they going for with that particular spaceship sound effect? I think Doctor Who does a great job of making people excited about the production of television, about all the tiny decisions that get made that add up into one huge thing. And here that's distilled into the Doctor seeing a hotel going, great, look what episode we're in this week. We're in a hotel episode, and it really feels like a real hotel. I think Doctor Who is often quite metafictional in that it's, often the Doctor will comment on things in a way that kind of transcends its televisualness. Stories like Vengeance on Varos, which are about the making of television, and I think this is another classic example of that.
I think Steffan should be the host of this podcast, not me. That was brilliant. I don't get a point for the Doctor's interest in the little things, but I love that description of the show making us excited about the process of making television without ever, sort of distancing us from the drama. It never says, well, switch off from the emotion and the plot and the excitement. But if we've really switched you onto it, now, you are going to, I've been listening to podcasts and doing a bit of delving myself about the minutiae of the delegates in the Daleks master plan, and there's a brilliant podcast about, which Dalek props are used for what and where, and when it's one's skirt and when it's somebody else's top, and when it's skirt 3 and midsection 2 and all that sort of stuff. And that stuff I find fascinating, and there's just so much, because if you break anything like a television production down to its constituent parts, well, there are so many. I was just that bit in that where they go from the sound of the kettle to the sound of the sonic screwdriver. It's tiny little bits like that, those choices that are made, and then those things that are sourced, and then it's and was that in the script, and if it wasn't, that means the director put it on, or did the sound person come and suggest it? So many and there's so much attention to detail, especially in modern television. Well, I mean, it's different, but modern, there are so many more shots, usually more locations, more setups, more bits of set dressing, so there's so much, and it's such a rich production, the God Complex, that I can see, and Matt Smith's Doctor, the bit with cheese plant is great. The Doctor, delighting in, and also it's a sign of the character as well, is that the Doctor notices the little things because they may be part of the bigger picture, and forensically looking at the microscopics is speaks of why the character is, often ahead of everybody else. But it's also great fun. Brilliantly put, Steffan, but I don't get a point for that. He's got to choose the director. Come on. 1 to go. It's 2-2. Can I? So it was a new series episode I won with before, wasn't it? Come on, Toby.
The fifth and final thing I love about the God Complex, and in some ways I've saved, not the best till last, Rita is the best, but here is something that I think is so true about Doctor Who. Most Doctor Who episodes, the Doctor is trying to solve a mystery, and, especially modern episodes, there's not that much space, there's not that much time to get everything done. So most modern one-part episodes, the Doctor sees that there's a mystery, runs away from some monsters, saves some lives, maybe loses some lives, and then goes, aha, I've got it, I've solved the mystery. That is a very classic structure to a modern Doctor Who episode. The God Complex does such a beautiful thing. This is one of my favourite things in the episode. The Doctor gets it wrong. The Doctor does work out the mystery. He works out, aha, the monster wants you afraid. And he's right. They do. The hotel wants people to be afraid. But he doesn't think it far enough ahead. The monster doesn't want them to be afraid because fear makes them vulnerable. It's because fear makes them fall back on their faith. It's the faith that's needed. The Doctor doesn't clock that. He thinks faith is keeping them safe, if anything. He's completely wrong. I love it. I love the fact that this episode, with all its wild imagery, with all its monsters and weirdness, with all the excitement, with all the death and heartbreak, there is still time for the Doctor to make an educated guess about what's going on, to get that wrong, and to correct himself and work out a new correct answer. It's the scientific process, really. I think in a lot of the best Doctor Who stories, the Doctor does act like a scientist. He gathers information and comes up with a theory. But here we see the scientific process in action, where you come up with a theory and then you get more information that proves that theory wrong, you amend the theory. I love it. That moment where the Doctor realises that telling people to fall back on their faith is what got them killed is heartbreaking, and I love it.
Oh, I love you, Steffan. I love the way that Steffan articulated that. And I think, did I get that wrong? No, I think I was just so keen jumping ahead. And I think because in my head, I know that the faith is the thing that needs to be broken and the faith is the thing that feeds the monster. But of course, yes, prior to that, the whole idea that we're presented with is a great science fiction idea. Yes, the fear provoked by the thing that scares you, yes. And I think in my reasoning I jumped a little ahead when I was talking about it because of course I've seen it before, so I know the twist, but and I was probably too busy talking. But yes, that is a superb, that it would be enough of a story, wouldn't it, if it presented you with something that scares you, provokes fear, feeds off your fear. That's a great science fiction idea. But no, what you do to fight your fear is to fall back on your faith, and that's what it's trying to do. So it's 2 steps ahead of you. It's like, somebody throwing something at you in order that you put your shield up, because your shield is made of a metal that gives that gives it the strength of 10 men, or that makes it, that feeds it, or that turns it on, or whatever. That the thing that you use to protect yourself is the thing that it desires. So it very cleverly, takes you down a path where you'll be in such a state that you need to, pull up your strongest defences, because your strongest defences are what it needs. That is a really clever idea, and I didn't cover that anything like as well in the commentary as Steffan did there. I thought that was really on point and very well put, and it is a great strength of the story and a really clever idea. And I love the way that Steffan articulated that. So he won. I think he deserved to. What an excellent guest. But I have a treat for him and for you, dear listener, because he is not the only guest on this edition of Happy Times and Places because I emailed the writer of The God Complex, Toby Whithouse, to see if he could give us his favourite things. And I don't think he's broken it up into 5. So normally what I would do, normally, I've only done it once before where the director, Andy Goddard of The Next Doctor, chose his 5 favourite things, and then we could see who'd got the same amount. I think Toby's just sent me his thoughts on the episode, but that's a nice bonus bit of insight from the horse's mouth, from the successful Doctor Who Toby, from the actual Doctor Who Toby Whithouse. Toby says, The God Complex. Here's a splurge of thoughts about it. Feel free to use as much or as little in whatever form or order you like. Well, I'm just going to read it out. So yes, says Toby Whithouse, writer of The God Complex. This is my favourite of all the Who episodes I've written. It began, as a lot of my Who scripts did, with a one-pitch line from Stephen. The Doctor and Amy and Rory find themselves in a spooky hotel where the corridors and walls keep moving and shifting. I loved the idea from the get-go. I'm a huge fan of Sapphire and Steel, and this felt like the sort of adventure they'd have. Plus, I love the chamber piece episodes. One of my favourite Whos of all time is Midnight, something creepy, less reliant on big CGI effects, and more character-driven. I took a step back from it and thought about this hotel that twists and turns and changes, and how it was like a maze. Then I thought about what could be in the middle of the maze, and I thought about Theseus and the Minotaur. I loved the Greek myths when I was a kid, and I've always been fascinated by the Minotaur, so that felt like the logical and quite exciting solution. So I had a setting, and I had my monster. The nightmares were a later addition. In fact, I think I'd got as far as writing an outline, and we all looked at it and decided it wasn't working, so we came up with the notion of the hotel being populated by everyone's worst fear. I felt strongly that amongst the other prisoners should be an alien, and I came up with a race called the Tivoli. I don't know why, but I wanted a sort of Douglas Adams kind of alien, stupid and supine. I loved writing that character. It was really useful to have. Not so much a traitor in the ranks, but someone utterly unreliable, utterly self-serving. A character like that helps generate plot and events. I thought Amara Karan was absolutely wonderful as Rita, and in a story that had now evolved into an exploration of faith, I felt it was absolutely vital that we didn't use Christianity, but embraced something else. My friend Paul Cornell was very complimentary about that aspect. He liked the line where, in response to the Doctor saying gleefully, "You're Muslim," Rita replies with, "Don't be frightened." Yeah, I thought that was great. He said that he's had similar interactions when the topic of his own faith comes up. Nick Curran did a spectacular job. There are too many moments to pick out, but there's a couple I have to mention. In the pre-titles, when the policewoman is succumbing to the magic in the hotel, she's sat on the floor of a corridor. I remember watching it and thinking, oh God, what I really want to happen now is for the shadow of the Minotaur to hit the wall at the end of the corridor, around 1 minute 42 seconds. And it did! That's when I thought we were in the hands of a genuinely brilliant director. He totally understood the episode, the tone, the intention. The next moment is around 23:02, when the Minotaur is stalking them through the hotel and they're all hiding. The Minotaur's horn scrapes a bit of the ceiling, which causes a little flurry of plaster dust to fall. It's a beautiful shot. Where else are you going to see something like that? There was a lot of debate among the fans about what was in room 11. I was always happy for it to remain a mystery, but I had a sneaking suspicion it was actually the Doctor himself. Or at least a personification of his arrogance, vanity, solipsism, isolation, and the accumulation of his 1,000+ years of carnage and horror. I put a clue in the Doctor's line, of course, who else? I think ultimately Stephen made it the crack in time, which was also obviously completely fine. The design is wonderful, the awful kitsch wallpaper. I wanted it to be like the kind of hotels I'd be dragged to on family holidays in the 70s. It's beautifully judged, not too self-aware, not too overt. Just look at the mugs the Doctor and Rita drink their tea from around 17 minutes in. Finally, this episode has a special place in my heart as I took my kids on a set visit. They were obviously much younger then. Matt and Karen couldn't have been nicer or more generous and gracious to my kids, which I'll always remember. We stood behind the cameras watching the scene where the hologram falls apart and the Minotaur collapses onto the floor. I can watch the episode and forget the script. I think the design, the direction and the performances are genuinely breathtaking. I'm incredibly proud to have contributed to it. Contributed? You wrote it, mate. Thanks so much to Toby. I love that. And aren't I lucky that I can send people who've done Doctor Who things an email and they will reply to me. And I hope you as the listener enjoy benefiting from that. I think it brings a nice extra... I mean, this episode I felt we would have had enough with Steffan, who I think has proved to be an articulate, passionate, eloquent advocate for a series, an episode that needed no defending. But I thought the perspectives that Steffan Great were really, really refreshing and fascinating to hear. And then to have Toby give his, insight from, the thought processes behind making it. I've gone into this knowing this is an episode that I liked. I've come out, I think, actually acknowledging it's an episode I love, and with a fresh appreciation for watching it as a Doctor Who fan and talking about, even though we didn't talk directly, other Who fans about it, about what enthuses us about the show, but also about the creative process, all the different choices that go into making an episode so memorable and so good. And those choices start with the writer, who puts it all on the paper. And I think Toby's a brilliant writer of Doctor Who. I would have happily seen more episodes from Toby, and I hope we get to see some more in the future, because I think he's a very good writer of character and jokes. I think all of his episodes have got some great jokes, and I remember just thinking line after line in Vampires of Venice that was so good. I think I've only met him a couple of times. He came to see Moths Ate My Doctor Who scarf in Brighton and sent me a message on Facebook afterwards, just saying, I was in your show this afternoon, which I thought was extremely kind. So, but I think we've only actually met once or twice. But he very kindly answered my email to give us a bit of insight into a fantastic episode that if you haven't seen for a while, I would urge you to. Here are Steffan's final plugs. I think Steffan has been a fabulous guest, so I hope you listen to what he has to say now.
Thank you very much for having me, Toby. Thank you for asking me to do this. I love sharing my favourite episodes with people, even if it's someone like you who's seen all of Doctor Who, no doubt, countless times. But it's still quite nice, isn't it, for hardcore fans to kind of ask each other what they love about it. You always get new answers. I've loved listening to the other episodes of this as well. I'm going to plug myself now. I'm going to do that. I'm going to tell you that I am at Stalin on Twitter. Stalin with a U, Stalun. Follow me on Twitter. That would be great. The other thing I would love you to check out is my podcast. That's the Rats in Boiler Suit podcasts, which is my Torchwood podcast. Me and Kim watch episodes of Torchwood and then talk about it. And our sort of USP, I suppose, is that we are both Welsh bisexuals, and we are watching the most Welsh bisexual TV programme in the world. So yeah, I'd love it if you would check that out wherever you get your normal podcasts. Thank you very much.
I am thrilled that I asked Steffan, and in fact, I think I might ask him to do another one, because I thought that was because he had mentioned another episode that he quite fancied doing, and I said, "Well, choose," and he chose that. But his other episode that he quite fancied doing is from an era that has not been terribly well represented in Happy Times and Places. So I'm going to thwack him an email and say, I'll tell you what, do the other one as well. Because I'm buoyed by his joy and his perceptiveness. And I'm buoyed reading that because I'd got the email from Toby, but I hadn't read through it in case it was going to affect, how I chose my things. I'd seen that it wasn't 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I was sort of doing it on the hop. So I'm enthused by Toby's insights too. So I hope you leave this as enthused as I do. I've really enjoyed myself in the past hour or so. It's probably longer than that, isn't it? Watching a great Doctor Who episode, having great perspectives on that Doctor Who episode flung to me from a viewer and from a creator, and feasting on all the sort of mental stimulation it gives me thinking about all the brilliant things about my favourite programme that I hope is your favourite programme too, and that it takes you, as it takes me, to all of my happiest of times and places. Ta-ta! Praise him. What? Nothing. Well, thank you so much for listening to Happy Times and Places, which is presented by me, Toby Hadoke. My special guest this time around was Steffan Alun, who can be found on Twitter at Stalun. That's a big S, a small t, a big A, L-U-N. Stalun. And I'd like to thank him. I'd also, of course, like to thank the patrons who make these podcasts possible. And they include Adam Parker, James Bell, Lee Wakely, Drew, Stephen Smith, aka Dalek Fan, Risto Mitty Sarillo, Peter Blackett, Andy Parkinson, Ruben Herfindahl, Peter Burns, Peter Harness, Rob Leonard, Stephen Moffat, Richard Straw, Nick Tedston, a couple of Davids who wish their surnames to be anonymous, I think. Unless, if you haven't been hearing your surnames, Davids, that's answer your messages what I sent you. Jenny at Bluebox99, Paul Carrington, Paul Cook, and Richard Chalk. The music for these podcasts is by Dave Gates. So, if you would like to join their number, those patrons whose names I mentioned at least 50% of, I can only go with what I'm furnished with, and I've erred on the side of anonymity if I'm not sure, because I don't want to out anybody as pouring their hard-earned cash into my coffers, should it be something they understandably want to keep a secret. However, you can be out and proud and doing it, or in the closet. Either way, both are possible at patreon.com/Toby Hadoke. You won't believe what's there. Advance releases, bonus material, various other bits of access, and it's all available at the lowest tier, £3 per month. There are other little trinkets as you ascend the tier ladder, but it's mostly there from the £3 a month level, which you can also get 10% off if you sign up for a year. That's at patreon.com/Toby Hadoke. If you don't fancy the monthly thing, you can just go to kofi.com/Toby Hadoke and do a one-off payment whenever you like, or whenever you think I sound like I need a bit of a boost. But look, I totally understand in these financial times, and also just the nature of the way we consume entertainment, I use the word loosely as far as this is concerned, that, it's not a thing we necessarily pay for. So I'll tell you what costs nothing, but would gladden the cockles. Do you gladden the cockles? No, you warm the cockles. Well, do you know what? You can warm them and gladden them, because my cockles respond very well to warmth. It makes them very glad. So if you could put a metaphorical jumper on my cockles, which will make them metaphorically very happy. No, actually very happy. I don't have cockles. By going to iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from. Most of what I just said was nonsense. I'm so sorry. I'm not doing it again. This is the post-credits. This is all free, whether you pay or not. Go to iTunes and give these a 5-star review. 5 stars really helps to make my cockles look really appealing to any passing whales. Who eats cockles? Seagulls? But we don't want to feed seagulls, do we? They're vicious. And quite covetous, I think. I mean, they see a thing and they want it. They don't ask, do they? Just swoop it. Anyway, just 5 stars on iTunes and a couple of lines of review saying what you like about these podcasts really helps to get them ascending up the podcast ladder. And they're aiming for the very top. It's very unlikely. I think there are podcasts about Play-Doh and dogging that get more listenership than a bespoke Doctor Who podcast. But there we go. Go to those places and say nice things about me, please. It will give me the validation I never got from my parents. Yeah, okay. No, that went off on one, didn't it? I'm a stand-up comedian as well. I know it's difficult to believe. I've been one for 24 years. No, I've been one for longer than that. But for 24 years, I have run and compared a comedy club in Manchester called Excess Malarkey. That's every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. And we have a monthly online show because we went online during the pandemic and it proved quite popular. And we have acts from all around the world, and that's free at the point of entry, though we do ask for donations just to keep us going, really. But you know, you could pay what you like, and it's a great entertaining show from 8 p.m. at twitch.tv/Excess Malarkey, first Sunday of every month. If you go up there anytime, there's an archive of past shows that can show you the sort of acts that we have. We've had everyone from Nish Kumar to James Acaster to Eddie Pepitone to John Glazer from Parks and Rec to an act you've never heard of that's just plugging away on the circuit and just happens to be brilliant and may well be a star of the future. That's the nature of the gig. That's at twitch.tv/Excess Malarkey. I love the fact that Steffan opened his thing by referring to Doctors Who. I like that. Doctors Who is good, isn't it? I really enjoyed his contribution. I'm going to be saying Doctors Who a lot now. I sent an email. Oh, yes, today. Here's the thing. Today, and this will be useful for future Happy Times and Places. Here's an exclusive. Although it's an exclusive that's basically hot air because I'm not going to go into detail, but I have been emailing a key contributor to 80s Doctor Who has never been interviewed on any of the DVD or Blu-ray range because, frankly, we couldn't find him. I have now found him. Too late for any of the DVDs and most of the Blu-rays, but it's a contact that means I'm doing an interview tomorrow about Doctor Who. Who can that be with? Well, stay tuned. It's not with John Nathan Turner, who used to say stay tuned. He was interviewed a lot and has died, so that would it's not him. But anyway, that's something to look forward to. That's made me quite pleased today anyway, and I hope your day has been good whenever it is you end up listening to this. All right, I think let's not get into I think my hotel room would be full of me talking crap and not knowing when to shut up. If it's yours, you're in it. Sorry about that.